class. So we are here for discussing the important MCQs for your accounting subject. And only few days left for your accounting examination. So this is a very right time when you should just get up your preparation. Okay. So now we are going to discuss the important MCQs. Let's start the today's session. And if you're new on the Officers Adda 247, hit the subscribe button so that you can get regular update from our side, and download the Adda 247 application so that you can get everything at a one place. Okay. So just let's start today's class. If we are just this is the last time when you should just enroll in our fresh batch that is going to start from the 20th of May. And in this batch, you are going to get the flat 77% off if you are just enrolling through the website, and if you're enrolling through the application, then you will get the extra 1% off. Okay, that means 78% off you are going to get, like with the code that is Y422. And this is the last opportunity when you are just going to get everything with a very fresh content. Okay, and whatever the sessions that we are going to deliver, that all based on the fully exam oriented. So in this batch you are going to get the ebooks, mock test, as well as the live classes, recorded classes, all things you are going to get in this batch. Okay, so let's start today's session with the very first question. We are going to understand the first question that is given here, that is the total asset of the firm that is given the 2,60,000, and the net worth that is given the 1,60,000, and the profit is given the 20,000. So what is the amount of the net credit, what is the amount of the creditors that you have to just tell here. Okay, so when we talk about like the total assets are given and the net worth and the profits are given, so how to calculate like this kind of the questions in the examination, that we have to understand, right? Okay, so the very important thing that you have to understand whenever we're talking about the balance sheet equation or accounting equation, the formula that you have to use, that is asset is equal to liabilities plus equity, right? Okay, so now the very important thing, this balance sheet equation is also known as the accounting equation. And when we talk about the asset of the firm is given the 2,60,000, right? And the net worth is given the 1,60,000, and the profit is giving the 20,000. And you know that whenever we're talking about the profit, okay, so that means you have to add into the net worth. Okay, so when we talk about that, the net, that the total asset is given, so 2,60,000 just right here, and liabilities, because when we talk about the amount of the creditors, that means you have to find out the liabilities for this question. Okay, now when we talk about, we have to just find out the liabilities, or you can also say that the creditors. And this way actually the examiner just asks you the questions, like the multiple questions, because concept stays there but the question changes, right? So asset is equal to liabilities plus equity, and now you can understand the in the like under the equity section, you can just write the value, that is 1,60,000 plus 20,000, and that this would become the 1,80,000. Now just tell me what would be the value of the liabilities or the creditors. Then you will say that this value would become the 80,000 rupees, and that it would be your answer. Okay, so this is how you have to solve the questions in the examination also. I'm hoping that everyone just understanding this, because whenever we're talking about like the net worth that is given and profit is given, then you have to add. And suppose that opposite of that, if the losses are given, then you have to subtract from the like the net worth. Okay, so that's how you have to solve this kind of the question, and there definitely you are going to get this kind of the question in the examination. Okay, next question. A starts business with 80,000 rupees and then purchases goods from B on credit for the 20,000 rupees. As per the accounting equation, which of the following should be the correct? Okay. Now just tell me the one thing important here, you have to understand the again the balance sheet equation, or as or you can say that accounting equation, that the relationship between that, the asset is equal to liabilities plus equity. Okay, so when we're talking about the A starts business with a 80,000 rupees. So whenever we're talking about due to business entity concept, because owner and its business entity both are the different. Okay, that means whatever the cash for this Mr. A, okay, the same would be the capital for the company, because whatever the Mr. A that is the owner of this company, suppose that, okay, so if Mr. A is the owner of this company, then you can understand now the company's liability. If Mr. A is introduced the like the money into his business, you can understand actually this is considered as a liability for the company. Okay, whenever the Mr. A would be demand, that company have to pay that, right? So that's why this would be considered as a capital for the company. So now when we talk about the assets are given, that is the cash. Okay. And now you can understand liabilities plus capital, right? That we call your equity. You can also say that the capital. Now you can understand for the very first condition, what would you write here? That is the cash, because the 80,000 rupees, this is cash for the Mr. A, while it is capital for the company, right? And you will just write here that is because there is no given the liabilities in this, so just avoid that. Okay. Now just read the another condition. What it is given? It is given, then purchase goods from B on the credit for 21,000 rupees. Now just tell me, if I'm just talking about this is Mr. A and this is Mr. A's company, and Mr. A's company is purchasing goods from the B, okay, from B on credit. Now you can understand actually goods considered as a inventory, right? When we talk about the goods is what? That is inventory or stock, and stock is always considered as an asset for the company, right? So that you can understand, but it is purchased on the credit. That means meanwhile it is also considered as a liability for the company. Okay, so now you will add the another component in this situation, that is cash plus, you can just write here that is goods is equal to capital plus liabilities. Okay, now how you can just write this equation? The cash would be the 80,000 plus goods amount of the 21,000, just right here, and the capital, that would be the 80,000 plus the liabilities, that would become the 21,000. Now you just tell me, when we just talk about like what should be the equation, then you can understand that all considered as an asset. Okay, right, that all considered as an asset, right? So that means you can also write here that is 1 lakh 1,000, and it would be equal to the 21,000 plus 80,000. Okay, so this would be your answer for this question, and this is you have to understand. So the very correct answer of this question, that would be the first. Okay, now you will get the same type of the questions in the examination, so you have to understand the you have to follow the same process for solving the questions, right? Now the next question. Trade receivables are given, trade payables are given, prepaid expenses are given, inventories are given, goodwill is given, and the current ratio, that is the question. Okay. Now, whenever we're talking about the current ratio, you have to understand the current ratio would be equal to the current asset, and it would be divided by the current liabilities, right? Now, when we talk about the current asset is equal to current ratio is equal to current asset divided by the current liabilities. Now you can understand how you can just determine that what components is given as an asset and what components is given as a liability to you. Now when we talk about the trade receivables, you can just talking about this is considered as an asset for the company, right? Trade payables meanwhile is considered as a liability, and the most important, that is considered as a current asset, and this is considered as a current liabilities. Prepaid expenses, that is also current asset. Inventory is also current asset. Goodwill. Now just tell me, goodwill is what? That is current asset or intangible, like current asset, or like, or you can understand non-current asset. Okay. So the very you have to understand, this is a very important thing. The goodwill is always considered as a non-current asset. Okay. Whenever we talking about the intangible asset, whenever we talking about the intangible asset, you are talking about that those assets you cannot touch, you cannot see. Okay. Okay, and that asset do not having the physical existence, those asset is known as an intangible asset. An intangible asset is always just understandable as a non-current asset. Okay, so this situation, like for this question, and this is a twist for this question you have to solve. Now you can understand what would be the current asset value. So this would be the 40,000 plus 10,000 plus 1 lakh. Okay, so what it would be, that is 1,50,000 only. Okay, we have to avoid this value, right? Because this is the given for the non-current asset. Now, what would be the value of the current liability? Then it would become the 60,000. Now, just tell me what would be the current ratio here. So this would become the 150 divided by the 60, and this would become the 2.5 is to 1, and you can also just know just write it, that is a 2.5 times. Okay, so that would be your answer for this question. The last part, that is 2.5 is to 1, that would be your answer, right? So this is how we actually have to solve the questions in the examination also. Next question. The sales book of the firm was overcast by the 3000 rupees. The total of the debit side of the trial balance has been showing 1,05,400. So what it should be? Now just tell me one thing here. When we talk about the trial balance, you have to understand this is debit side and this is the credit side. All right. And we actually just record the assets, all the expenses under the debit side, and all the liabilities, all the income, all the gains we just record under the credit side. Now the very important thing whenever we talking about like the sales, okay, so sales actually generate the revenue for the company. Whenever we talking about the sales is generating the revenue for the company. So where we should just record this transaction in the trial balance, then you will say you have to just record this transaction on under the credit part. Okay, then we can say that because of one of the feature and the one of the most important feature of the trial balance, that debit balance should be equal to the credit balance. Okay, so whenever we're talking about the sales book is just overcast by the 3000 rupees, you can understand you actually just overcast this part, that is credit part, that is 3000. Okay, while the total of the debit side of the trial balance, that is given the 1,05,400. So you can understand. So the question is what it should be. Okay, now you can just tell me here, when we talk about, we actually done the mistake on the credit part. Okay, not on the debit part. So that the correct answer, that should be the same, the 1,05,400. There would be no any impact on this on the debit balance. I think it is understandable for everyone. Now just try to understand, whenever we're talking about the sales is overcast by the 3000 rupees. Okay, okay, while you can just assuming that your debit part is correct. Okay, so that means the debit balance should be the same as it is. Okay, because you had done the mistake on the credit side, not on the debit side. So you are talking about the balance of the debit side. Okay, so that's why the correct answer, that would be your 1,05,400 rupees. Okay, right? If the question that would be just suppose that the question, you can understand if it is just asking that what should be the the question that may be what is the current what is the current balance of the credit side. Okay, then you can understand you have to just add 3000 in this, and that would be your answer for this, right? So I hope it is understandable for everyone. Okay, so because it is asking for the debit balance only, that's why we are just writing here 1,05,400. Don't be confused in this type of the questions. You have to just keep it simple, everything. Okay, I think it is clear for everyone. Now, next question. Purchase of the machinery by a firm for cash would result in what? Okay, when we're talking about like any company, okay, when we're talking about any firm, if any firm is purchasing the machinery, right, and for the cash, so you can understand for the cash, because when we talk about the machinery and cash, so in both, like when we talk about the machinery and cash, both considered as an asset for the company. The same asset is going out and the same asset is coming into the business. Okay, so then that it would impact in what, it would impact on the asset, like in what quantity, you can understand. Whenever we're talking about the assets, so one asset is coming in and one asset is coming out with respect to each other. Okay, so in that situation, you can understand there will be no changes in the total amount of the asset, that you have to understand. Okay, and there would be no consideration of the liabilities also. There would be no any, because here we are talking about the cash only, not for the credit side, not for the on the credit. Okay, so that's why there would be no impact on the total amount of the asset. That would be your answer, right? Next question. Prepare bank reconciliation statement for the month of the March, that is 31st March 2020. Credit balance is given and the lot of conditions are given. And now how you should handle this kind of the questions in the examination, that you have to understand. Look, whenever the cash book balance is given, just immediately write here passbook and just make the table like this, that is cash book and the passbook. Okay, now just try to understand wherever we're talking about the condition, that is credit balance as per the cash book is given. One of the important feature you have to understand for the cash book, that debit side, on the debit side we actually keep all the cash receipts, and on the credit side we actually keep all the cash payment. Look, just focus on what I'm saying, that I'm just talking about the cash receipts and the cash payments, right? So now when we talk about the credit balance as per the cash book, that is given the 1,45,000 rupees, you can understand like the what the value is given. You can understand the value is given here minus 1,45,000 rupees. So either it is given the credit balance as per the cash book, then you have to understand it is a kind of the liability that customers having or the firm having, okay. And if it is given the overdraft as per the cash book, then then also you can understand the same meaning, right? So if the credit balance as per the cash book, because the cash payment is always just known as a liability that customer have to pay, right? So that's why we are just writing here with the negative figure, that is minus 1,45,000. Now just read the one by one every conditions here. Check deposited but not yet collected. That means customer, because the one of the feature of this bank reconciliation statement, that is customer immediately record the transaction, okay. Customer immediately record the transaction whether it is collected or whether it is not presented for the payment. That doesn't matter, customer or just immediately record that transaction. So in that scenario, you can understand for the very first condition, the passbook statement or the bank statement, that would be considered as a zero. Okay, now just tell me, passbook balance is a greater than or lesser than the cash book, then you will say the passbook balance is a lesser than the cash book. So you will just write here that is minus 7,000 minus 72,000 rupees. Okay, so this is how we actually have to solve the questions. Let's just try to understand here. Now the again another condition, that is given the check issued but not presented for the payment of the 52,800. That means check issued of the 52,800 but it is not presented over the counter. That means in the, like for this transaction, bank statement would also reflect as a zero. Okay, so now just tell me, passbook or bank statement is a greater than or lesser than the cash book, then you will say it is greater than the your cash book, then you will write the 52,800. Okay, bank charges of 25,000 charged by the bank. That means bank is actually charging the 2,500 rupees. So but customer is not aware of that transaction. That means this would reflect as a zero for this customer, like customer's cash book, or you can also understand like the firm or company's cash book. Okay, so that means for this transaction you can understand the passbook balance is a lesser than the cash book balance. Okay, a customer directly deposited the 45,000 rupees into the bank but customer is not aware of that. You can also just understand this term as a one of the customer or one of the debtor of the firm or the company. Okay, directly deposited the 45,000 rupees into the bank, but firm manager is, or the company is not aware of that. That means you can understand for this transaction, passbook balance is a greater than the cash book balance. Okay, interest on the bank overdraft charged by the bank, that is 10,000. Just right here that is minus 10,000, because whenever we're talking about the bank overdraft, okay, that means interest is charging by the bank and that should be on the negative, right? But customer is not aware of that, so that would be reflecting as a zero. Now you can just tell me here that passbook balance is a lesser than the cash book balance, so you will write with the negative figure. And now just add and just tell me what would be the answer of this. Just tell me what would be the answer of this question, that minus 1,45,000 minus 72,000 plus 52,800 minus 2,500 plus 45,000 and minus 10,000. So that would be your become 1,31,700. That would be your answer. Oh, okay, no any options are given, just add here, that is another option, that is E. That would be your answer, 1,31,700. That would be your answer for this question. Okay, so 1,31,700, that would be your answer for this question. I hope it is clear for everyone. Okay, next question. When is opening stock is given, closing stock is given, cost of goods sold is given, and you have to find out the stock turnover ratio. Now again, whenever we talking about the stock turnover, the same you can just read here, that is inventory turnover ratio. Just try to understand the every term in a very particular way. Okay, when we talk about the stock, we also say the inventory. Okay, so inventory turnover ratio is what? Whenever we're talking about the inventory turnover, because turnover just represent the sales. Okay, so we can say that it is a cost of goods sold and it would be divided by the average inventory, right? So now you can just see here that cost of goods sold actually given here, that is 2,22,000 to 2,20,000 rupees. Okay, so just right here, that is cost of goods sold, and average inventory, that is equal to, because the name is average inventory, that means opening stock plus closing stock, and it would be divided by the two. So 50,000 plus 60,000, and it would be divided by the two. So this value will become the 4,40,000, and it will be divided by the 1,10,000 rupees, right? So your answer, that would be the 4 is to 1, or you can also say that the 4 times, that should be the correct answer for this question. Okay, I'm hoping that you are just understanding whatever I'm just explaining to you, right? Next question. The promoter of the business is treated as a creditor for the business. Accordingly, which of the following concept of the accounting? Now you can understand what I said to you. I said to you that concept stays there, but questions changes. Okay, that means now you can understand what we are just understood, like in the previous questions, that we are talking about this is the owner and this is its companies. Okay, so when we talk about this is owner and this is a company of this owner, so you can understand whenever we're talking about like this situation, that this is a owner and this is a company of this, due to business entity concept, both are the different. Okay, so what we are talking about, the promoter of the business is a treated as a creditor for the business. What it means, that whenever we're talking about the owner is always start a company with some capital. Okay, suppose it owner started the company with a 40,000 rupees capital, so you can understand now this is company's liability to pay this amount to the owner. Okay, that's why we are talking about for this would become the debtor for this condition, and the owner become the creditor for this condition. So that is a given here, that the promoter of the business is treated as a creditor for the business. Accordingly, which of the following concept of the accounting, right? So this is we have to understand. Next question. The rule debit what comes in is applicable in case of which of the following, right? And the multiple options are given, like payment of the salary to an employee. Whenever we're talking about the payment of the salary, it is always considered as an expenses, right? So payment of the salary is always considered as an expense, and we can just talk about the rule debit what comes in. Okay, that rule is applicable for the real account category. For the real account category, you can understand all the asset comes under the real account category, and for the real account category, debit and credit concept says debit what comes in and credit what goes out. Okay, so that means we are actually looking for all the options, like we are actually looking for the assets, right? So payment of the salary is considered as an expense. Sale of goods on the credit to another firm, here we are talking about the what, here we are talking about the credit sales. Okay, so this is also not correct. Purchase of the vehicle for use in the business, now you can understand it is considered as an asset for the business, because it would generate the revenue for the company, or it would contribute for generating the revenue in the company. Okay, so what should be your answer for this question? The correct answer, that would be the C. And this is how you have to solve the questions in the examination also. I'm hoping that everyone just understood this, right? Next question. Okay, so that would be the last question for this. Okay, so now I'm just winding up this session. I hope you all understood the sessions here, and I hope you all understood the different concept from the different questions we discuss actually here. Okay, now when we talk about that, the multiple video courses that actually running into like in our Adda 247 store. Okay, so you can just grab the opportunity, like you are going to get flat 77% off for the bilingual as well as the English medium batches. Okay, you only have to use the code, that is Y422, and with this code you are going to get the big discount on the bilingual as well as the English medium batches. Okay, so another thing that because when we talk about the test packs, and that actually gives a final touch to our preparation, and that is very essential if you are just giving the examination. Okay, if you are just going to give the examination, because it will just give you a real time appearance. Okay, So that means you have to just subscribe for the test packs also, and you are going to get the flat 17% off. For that you have to use the code buy422 and you are going to get the discount on that also. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone just enjoyed this session. Thank you everyone for watching me in this session. Now we will meet on the tomorrow at the same time. So like this video if you're liking our effort, liking our content, and share this video to your friends, to your colleagues, so that maximum number of our bankers can join us like for with this kind of the sessions. Okay, so thank you everyone.